Good morning to you all as we continue our Genesis to Revelation study. We are today on 2 Samuel chapters 17 to 19. David is still being pursued by Absalom, his son.
Chapter 17. Moreover, Ahithophel said unto Absalom, Let me now choose out 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue after David this night. And I will come upon him while he is weary and weak-handed, and will make him afraid, and all the people that are with him shall flee, and I will smite the king only. And I will bring back all the people unto thee. The man whom thou seekest is as if all returned, so all the people shall be in peace. And the saying pleased Absalom well, and all the elders of Israel. Then said Absalom, Call now Hushai the Archite also, and let us hear likewise what he saith. And when Hushai was come to Absalom, Absalom spake unto him, saying, Ahithophel has spoken after this manner. Shall we do after his saying? If not, speak thou. And Hushai said unto Absalom, The counsel that Ahithophel hath given is not good at this time. For, said Hushai, Thou knowest thy father and his men, that they be mighty men, and they be chafed in their minds, as a bear robbed of her whelps in the field. And thy father is a man of war, and will not lodge with the people. Behold, he is hid now in some pit, or in some other place. And it will come to pass, when some of them be overthrown at the first, that whosoever heareth it will say, There is a slaughter among the people that follow Absalom. And he also that is valiant, whose heart is as the heart of a lion, shall utterly melt. For all Israel knoweth that thy father is a mighty man, and they which be with him are valiant men. Therefore I counsel that all Israel be generally gathered unto thee, from Dan even to Beersheba, as the sand that is by the sea for multitude, and that thou go to battle in thine own person. So shall we come upon him in some place where he shall be found, and we will light upon him as the dew falleth on the ground, and of him and of all the men that are with him there shall not be left so much as one. Moreover, if he be gotten into a city, then shall all Israel bring ropes to that city, and we will draw it into the river, until there be not one small stone found there. And Absalom and all the men of Israel said, The counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel. For the Lord had appointed to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, to the intent that the Lord might bring evil upon Absalom.
Continuing from verse 27.
It came to pass after they were departed, that they came up out of the well, and went and told King David, and said unto David, Arise and pass quickly over the water, for thus hath Ahithophel counseled against you. Then David arose, and all the people that were with him, and they passed over Jordan. By the morning light there lacked not one of them that was not gone over Jordan. And when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass, and arose, and gat him home to his house, to his city, and put his household in order, and hanged himself, and died, and was buried in the sepulchre of his father. Then David came to Mahanaim, and Absalom passed over Jordan, he and all the men of Israel with him. And Absalom made Amasa captain of the host, instead of Joab, which Amasa was a man's son, whose name was Ithra, an Israelite, that went into Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, sister to Zeruiah, Joab's mother. So Israel and Absalom pitched in the land of Gilead. And it came to pass, when David was come to Mahanaim, that Shobi the son of Nahash of Rabbah of the children of Ammon, and Machir the son of Amiel of Lodebar, and Barzillai the Gileadite of Rogelim, brought beds and basins and earthen vessels, and wheat and barley and flour, and parched corn and beans and lentils, and parched pulse, and honey and butter, and sheep and cheese of kine, for David and for the people that were with him, to eat. For they said, The people is hungry, and weary and thirsty in the wilderness.
Okay, I said verse 27, but actually we started before then. So even though the sins of David was a result of these accounts and prophecies of God, he is still assisting David. His servant, this is God still assisting David, his servant and a man after his heart, which is what God says about David, through the counsel of Hushai. Now fortunately, David has had loyalty from Hushai and those that brought his men food. Was this also of God? Reminds me of many that God fed, i.e. Elijah in Psalms 37:25, which says, I have been young and now am old, yet have I not seen a righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging for bread. Now David, as I said, was told he's going to be king, but he is king and so forth. But yet, although he's always praying to God and having asked for God to be on his side, he's still doing the works of hiding and doing whatever. He's not just leaving God to protect him. Now Absalom was David's son, his family. The saying, blood is thicker than water, is no longer correct in all circumstances, because here we have Absalom, David's son, pursuing to kill him. Psalms 41, verse 9. Yea, mine own familiar friend, in whom I trusted, which did eat of my bread, have lifted up his heel against me. However, how and why did all this start? Ammon lusted after Tamar and did to her what Shechem did to Dinah in Genesis chapters 34, verse 2. However, unlike Ammon, a person who should have known the law and followed Tamar's advice in 2 Samuel 13:13 to approach David first, and he would have withheld her from him, Shechem, a Gentile, he tried to make his actions right as within the law, which is Genesis 34 verse 4, which said, and Shechem spake unto his father Hamor, saying, get this damsel to me to wife. And the law is Exodus chapter 22 verse 16. And if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. See also the story of Samson in Judges chapters 14 verse 2. So we have basically an Israelite not following the law, and a Gentile wanting to follow the law after doing the same action. So action should have been taken by David against Ammon. Deuteronomy 22:25 I mentioned yesterday, which is, but if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, then the man only that lay with her shall die. For unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsel no sin worthy of death. For as when a man riseth against his neighbour and slayeth him, even so it is this manner. Verse 27, for he found her in a field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. If a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, and lay hold on her, and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. So, remember Ammon had sent out the guards so that Tamar's shouting wouldn't be heard, and he forced him. So the scripture actually says he forced himself on Tamar. So it's similar to finding her in a field, and she has no one to help her. Now, though the action of Ammon was not in a field, it was in a private place where he had sent away his guards, as I so said. So Tamar was helpless. For whatever reason, David did not take action against Ammon. Absalom, her brother, felt he had to revenge his sister and not let the sin go unpunished. A lesson to us who do not take corrective action against our children, employees, or other. Remember, God always said to put the sin away from the congregation. The consequences could be devastating to us or others. Some child bullies turn out to be murderers, etc., if they're not corrected when they're young. So that almost all societies are plagued with disobedience to God's commandments, even to the extent of thinking they are nailed to the cross, no longer apply, etc. And only the love and forgiveness character of God and his Son applies today, is what people think. Did David's love and forgiveness help, or should he have applied God's instructions of putting sin away from the evildoer? So in other words, whatever feelings David had for Absalom, he should have carried out what God had said, because as him not doing that, this is where we are. Compared to Saul, remember King Saul, when Jonathan broke the vow eating the honey, and King Saul was actually going to kill his son, who ignorantly had the honey. purely because he broke the law or broke the laws of the vow. And King Saul was prepared to kill his son to maintain the law, but his men, his soldiers, is what stopped him. Okay, so I refer you to Deuteronomy chapter 17 verse 12 and Deuteronomy chapters 21 verse 21 for some laws about this kind of matter. We also have Leviticus chapters 19 verse 15, which says, "You shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. Thou shalt not respect the person of the poor, nor honour the person of the mighty, but in righteousness shalt thou judge thy neighbour." So David maybe had some respect for his son Absalom because he was handsome and all that kind of stuff, and as a consequence, this is what happened. Okay, reading from chapters 18 and verse 1, which is where Absalom gets killed.
18. And David numbered the people that were with him, and set captains of thousands and captains of hundreds over them. And David sent forth a third part of the people under the hand of Joab, and a third part under the hand of Abishai the son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, and a third part under the hand of Ittai the Gittite. And the king said unto the people, I will surely go forth with you myself also. But the people answered, Thou shalt not go forth, for if we flee away, they will not care for us. Neither if half of us die, will they care for us. But now thou art worth 10,000 of us. Therefore now it is better that thou succor us out of the city. And the king said unto them, What seemeth you best I will do. And the king stood by the gate side, and all the people came out by hundreds and by thousands. And the king commanded Joab and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Deal gently for my sake with the young man, even with Absalom. And all the people heard when the king gave all the captains charge concerning Absalom. So the people went out into the field against Israel, and the battle was in the wood of Ephraim, where the people of Israel were slain before the servants of David. And there was there a great slaughter that day of 20,000 men. For the battle was there scattered over the face of all the country, and the wood devoured more people that day than the sword devoured. And Absalom met the servants of David, and Absalom rode upon a mule, and the mule went under the thick boughs of a great oak, and his head caught hold of the oak, and he was taken up between the heaven and the earth, and the mule that was under him went away. And a certain man saw it, and told Joab, and said, Behold, I saw Absalom hanged in an oak. And Joab said unto the man that told him, And behold, thou sawest him, and why didst thou not smite him there to the ground? And I would have given thee 10 shekels of silver and a girdle. And the man said unto Joab, Though I should receive 1,000 shekels of silver in mine hand, yet would I not put forth mine hand against the king's son. For in our hearing the king charged thee and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Beware that none touch the young man Absalom. Otherwise I should have wrought falsehood against mine own life, for there is no matter hid from the king, and thou thyself wouldest have set thyself against me. Then said Joab, I may not tarry thus with thee. And he took 3 darts in his hand, and thrust them through the heart of Absalom, while he was yet alive in the midst of the yoke. And 10 young men that bare Joab's armor compassed about, and smote Absalom, and slew him. And Joab blew the trumpet, and the people returned from pursuing after Israel, for Joab held back the people. And they took Absalom, and cast him into a great pit in the wood, and laid a very great heap of stones upon him. All Israel fled every one to his tent. Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and reared up for himself a pillar, which is in the king's dale, for he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. And he called the pillar after his own name, and it is called unto this day Absalom's place.
Continuing from verse 29, where the messengers are sent to David about, or one messenger is sent to tell about Absalom's death, but another messenger wanted to go as well.
And the king said, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Ahimaaz answered, When Joab sent the king's servant, and me thy servant, I saw a great tumult, but I knew not what it was. And the king said unto him, Turn aside, and stand here. And he turned aside, and stood still. And behold, Cushai came, and Cushai said, Tidings, my lord the king, for the Lord hath avenged thee this day of all them that rose up against thee. And the king said unto Cushai, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushai answered, The enemies of my lord the king, and all that rise against thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man is. And the king was much moved, and went up to the chamber over the gate, and wept. And as he went, thus he said, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would God my son, my son.
Chapter 19, reading from verse 1.
And it was told Joab, Behold, the king weepeth and mourneth for Absalom. And the victory that day was turned into mourning unto all the people, for the people heard say that day how the king was grieved for his son. And the people gat them by stealth that day into the city, as people being ashamed steal away when they flee in battle. But the king covered his face, and the king cried with a loud voice, O my son Absalom, O Absalom, my son, my son. And Joab came into the house to the king, and said, Thou hast shamed this day the faces of all thy servants, which this day have saved thy life, and the lives of thy sons, and of thy daughters, and the lives of thy wives, and the lives of thy concubines, in that thou lovest thine enemies, and hatest thy friends. For thou hast declared this day that thou regardest neither princes nor servants. For this day I perceive that if Absalom had lived, and all we had died this day, then it had pleased thee well. Now therefore arise, go forth, and speak comfortably unto thy servants. For I swear by the Lord, if thou go not forth, there will not tarry one with thee this night, and that will be worse unto thee than all the evil that befell thee from thy youth until now. Then the king arose and sat in the gate, and they told unto all the people, saying, Behold, the king doth sit in the gate. And all the people came before the king, for Israel had fled every man to his tent. And all the people were at strife throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, The king saved us out of the hand of our enemies, and he delivered us out of the hand of the Philistines, and now he is fled out of the land for Absalom. And Absalom, whom we anointed over us, is dead in battle. Now therefore why speak ye not a word of bringing the king back?
Continuing from verse 15.
So the king returned and came to Jordan, and Judah came to Gilgal to go to meet the king, to conduct the king over Jordan.
So I'll leave you to read the rest of the story. What we have is Absalom avenged his sister by killing only Ammon. Chapter 13, verse 33. He fled, returned after the plot of Joab, chapter 14, but was not treated by David as expected. 2 Samuel chapter 14, verse 23. It says, So Joab arose and went to Geshur and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. Verse 24, And the king said, Let him turn to his own house, and let him not see my face. So Absalom returned to his own house, and saw not the king's face. I assume as a result, Absalom felt grieved and took the action that he did, possibly thinking he would make a better king, or was it of God, in response to the prophecy he spoke about David and Bathsheba. Either way, in the end, he ended up hanged, all because of Ammon's lust. This is Absalom, as he tried to protect his sister, ended up being hanged between a tree. Brings to mind a verse, James chapters 1 verse 15. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin when it is finished bringeth forth death. Was his death for revenging his sister, or coveting the kingship? We are now in our studies back to the congregation of Israel, having gone leader King David. So we are now back with King David being one leader of the congregation of Israel. Shalom, until tomorrow, God willing. Hope you're enjoying your studies and remembering some of the points we are covering.